You ate today, you did not think about it. That is the strange part. Somewhere behind you is a room with food in it. There has always been a room with food in it. For almost everyone who ever lived, there was not. Hunger was not an event. Hunger was a season. It arrived every year on time. People gave it a name. These are the 10 darkest things they did about it. Not stories, things we can prove. Each one is written into something that survived. A cut mark on a bone, a groove across a tooth, a pit full of fish, a tree scarred in the shape of a hand. We are counting down from 10. The order is not how many died. The order is how far past the line each one goes. The line is what counts as food. Number 10 is a new food. Number 1 is each other. Between them, the line moves. It moves a little at a time. That is the part nobody tells you. Nobody decides to do the last one. They do number 10 first, then number 9. Then the winter runs long. You will notice something on the way down. Almost none of this is panic. Almost all of it is skill. Smashing bone to powder takes practice. Rotting fish correctly takes knowing how. Peeling a tree without killing it is a technique. Hunger did not make people stupid. Hunger made people very good at things you would rather not be good at. Hold that thought. These are not the acts of desperate animals. These are the acts of experts. Let us start with the sea. Number 10 is shellfish. That sounds like nothing. That sounds like a holiday. Hold on to it. For most of our history, we ate nothing from the sea. The sea was the edge of the world. Food walked on 4 legs or grew in the ground. Here is what everyone has backwards. Shellfish looks like a downgrade. A limpet is a bad meal. You prize it off a rock. You get almost nothing for the work. Nobody picks that while there are antelope. So the shells are not a menu. The shells are a distress signal. Look at when they turn up. They turn up in a cold, dry stretch of the ice age. Most of Africa was desert. The animals had followed the water. People walked to the one pantry that ignores rain. The tide. A researcher named Curtis Marion published this in 2007. His team dug a cave on the South African coast called Pinnacle Point. Inside were shells, carried in and eaten. They are 164,000 years old. Roughly 5,000 generations of people. That moved the earliest known use of the sea back 40,000 years. So why is this dark? Because of the price. A tide comes twice a day. It does not wait. It runs on the moon's clock, not yours. To live off shellfish, you stop moving freely. You hold one stretch of coast. Forever, against everyone else who works it out. The sea will feed you. It wants your whole life in exchange. Every safety net costs something like that. Yours does too. You are simply not the one paying. Number 9 is bread before farming, not a loaf. Flour. Ground plant flour 20,000 years before anyone planted a seed. You were told a story about early people. The story is that they ate meat. Big animals, spears, fire, done. That story comes from what survives. Bone survives. A mashed root does not. So we found the bones and wrote the menu from them. We read a receipt with half the lines missing. Here is what was really happening. Take a flat stone. Take a rounder stone that fits your hand. Dig the fat white root of a bulrush out of cold mud. In autumn, it is bitter. It is stringy. Grit all through it. Dry it. Beat it again. Grind it until it stops being a root. Grind it until it is powder. That powder keeps. That is the whole point. Meat rots in days. Flour feeds you in February. A researcher named Anna Ravedin published the evidence in 2010. Her team scraped grinding stones from 3 sites: Italy, Russia, Czechia. The stones still held starch grains from wild plants. The Italian site is around 30,000 years old. That is roughly 10 times older than the pyramids. Now count the hours. Digging, drying, beating, grinding. Most of a day for one bowl of gray powder. You do not spend a day like that while there is an animal to chase. You spend it when there is not. The grinding stone is not a cookbook. It is a calendar of a hungry autumn. Somebody looked at a swamp and saw a winter in it. Number 8 is what is left when the meat is gone. A stripped carcass is not empty. There is marrow in the long bones. Everyone knows about marrow. Crack the bone, eat the middle, fine. This is the step after that. This is what you do when the marrow is gone too. Take the ends of the bones, not the hard shaft. The knobbly ends. Inside those, bone is a sponge. That sponge is soaked in fat. You cannot chew it out. You cannot suck it out. There is one way. You smash the bone ends to gravel with a stone hammer. You tip the gravel into water. You boil it for hours. The fat floats up. You let it cool and lift the grease off in a sheet. Here is the part that made headlines in 2025. A team led by Lutz Kindler published a German site called Newmark Nord. Neanderthals did this 125,000 years ago. That is 80,000 years earlier than anyone thought. And not once in a corner. They hauled at least 172 large animals to one lakeside spot. That is a lorry load of skeletons. Bones smashed. Bones sorted. Bones processed in bulk. So which is it? The last scrapings of a starving group, or a factory? Both. That is the finding. Desperation and skill are one act, seen from two angles. Somebody was hungry enough to invent this. Then somebody got good enough to run it. Look in your bin tonight. There is a chicken carcass in it with a day of calories inside. You are the first people who could afford to throw that away. Number 7 is bark, not the dry outside. Peel that away. Underneath is a soft, wet, pale layer against the wood. That layer is alive. It is the part of the tree that grows. Cut a sheet of it out of a pine. Dry it, roast it, grind it. Bark bread. Here is where everyone gets it wrong. Bark bread is famous as famine food. Scandinavians ate trees when the harvest failed. That story is true. It is not the whole picture. The exception is the interesting part. A researcher named Lars Erslund counted the trees, not the stories about the trees, the trees. A Scots pine carries a scar where bark was cut away. The tree grows around it. The scar stays for centuries. His team logged bark-peeled pines at 313 sites. Northern Sweden. That is a whole landscape of them. Then they read the tree rings and dated the cuts. Continuous use from about 1450 to 1890, 400 years. Here is the finding. For the Sami people, this was never famine food. It was a staple, harvested every spring. It went with wealth, not hunger. A family with more reindeer ate more bark, not less. Just south of them were Swedish farmers. They cut the same layer off the same tree. For them, it meant everything else had failed. Same tree. Opposite meaning, which is uncomfortable. Famine food is not a category of food. It is a category of feeling. Nothing in a pine tree knows whether you are poor. The only thing that changes is whether you had a choice. Number 6 is spoilage, used as a tool. Everything you know about food safety is about stopping this. Cold stops it. Salt stops it. Cooking stops it. Rot is the enemy. Now turn that around. Rot is small things eating your food before you do. If you cannot stop them, you can choose which ones win. Give the sour, acid-making ones the whole room. They make the food too acid for anything worse. Your food is being eaten slowly by something harmless. That is fermentation. That is also every pickle you have had. Here is the oldest one we have found. A researcher named Adam Boethius published it in 2016. The site is in southern Sweden. He found a pit holding roughly 200,000 fish bones. That is a wall of fish. 9,200 years old. That is 4,000 years before the first pyramid. And it was not a heap that went bad. Look at how it was built. The fish were layered with pine bark, which is sour. They were coated in seal fat to keep air out. They were wrapped in sealskin. Then the parcel went into a pit in cold ground and was left. Every step there is a decision. Somebody worked out that the right kind of rotting has a recipe. Now the dark part. You have to walk away. For months. You bury your whole winter in autumn and you cannot check it. You are not preserving food. You are gambling with it. You learn whether you won on the day you are hungry enough to open it. Number 5 is what you do after killing something enormous. You have brought down an animal the size of a small van. Congratulations. You now have a problem. There is more meat here than your group eats in a month. In a week it will be crawling. Everything you won, you are about to lose. Most assume the answer is drying or smoke. Both work. Both share a flaw. They take days of standing in the open. Beside a mountain of meat, everything can smell. Here is the other answer. Put it in the water. A cold pond bottom is dark. It is near freezing. There is almost no air down there. The things that spoil meat need air. So you cut the animal up. You weight the pieces with stones. They sink and stay sunk. Then you leave your food at the bottom of a lake. Sit with that. Everything you own dropped into black water on purpose. A researcher named Daniel Fisher worked this out from the bones. He was digging an 11,000-year-old mastodon in Michigan. That is an animal like a shaggy elephant. Stones had been placed with it to hold it under. He has since found more than a dozen sites like it. Then he tested it. Real meat in a real pond. It kept at least 6 months. A whole winter. Now what that means. Your winter is underwater in the dark, half a day away. You cannot see it. You cannot guard it. A thaw can move it. Another group can find it. For the first time on this list, the food is safe and you are not. We all keep a cache now. Ours is a number on a screen and we cannot see that either. Number 4 is the moment the food is gone. Not low, gone, and I want to be honest here. This is not prehistory. This is a famine we have records of with dates and names. I use it because it teaches us what the older bones mean. Look around a house from before shops. A coat is caribou hide. Boots are sealskin. A window is dried gut, thin enough to pass light. Rope, thread, the cover on a boat. All of it is animal. So when the food is gone, you are still surrounded by animal. You are wearing it. You are living inside it, and you can boil it. Old hide is one stubborn material. It is the stuff that makes gristle chewy. Boil it long enough and it turns to jelly. That jelly is food. Barely. Here is what nobody says. It hardly feeds you at all. You burn more heat gathering fuel than the boot gives back. Boiling your clothes is not a solution. It is a symptom. It is the last thing between a house and nothing. 2 researchers, Karen Mudar and Stuart Speaker, studied one such winter in 2003. St. Lawrence Island, Alaska, in 1878. The weather turned, and the walrus did not come. More than 9 in 10 people on that island died. Whole villages were found next spring with nobody in them. Now the part that should land. Everything they ate at the end was something they needed. The boat cover keeps you dry. The boots keep your feet. Eat the coat tonight and you cannot hunt tomorrow. That is the bottom. Not a lack of food. A choice between today and any tomorrow at all. Number 3 is not an act of cooking. It is an act of arithmetic. When there is not enough, somebody gets less. We picture famine as everyone starving equally. That is almost never what happens. A household is not a bucket that empties evenly. It is a set of decisions, made every single day, by people who love each other. Somebody works so somebody eats. Somebody is small so somebody waits. Nobody says it out loud. It does not need saying, and it leaves a mark. That is the horrible part. A tooth grows in layers like a tree. Starve while a tooth is forming and that month comes out wrong. You get a groove across the enamel. That groove is permanent. You still have it at 50. Somebody digging you up in 1,000 years still finds it. Bone does the same thing. Stop growing, start again, and you leave a bright line across the shaft. Every hungry season, a line. A researcher named Johnny Jebber studied the workhouse dead of the Great Irish Famine. That was in 2014. Again, this is history, not prehistory, and I say so on purpose. He looked at the children who did not survive. Grooved teeth, lines in the bone, bodies too short for their age. 2 years later, another team read those teeth chemically. Layer by layer, almost month by month. You can watch, in the chemistry, a body consume itself. So here is the turn. Those grooves are in prehistoric teeth too, in enormous numbers. We have simply never had the names for them. Each one was a decision made at a fire, about who could wait. Somebody chose. Somebody always chose. Number 2 is not something people ate. It is what hunger does to the person eating. We know it precisely because in 1944 somebody measured it. You think of hunger as a feeling, a loud, uncomfortable feeling in your middle, one that goes when you eat. It is not that. Past a certain point, hunger stops being a feeling. It becomes a personality. Ansel Keys ran the study at the University of Minnesota. 36 volunteers, all healthy, all willing. They were fed about 1,800 calories a day for 6 months. That is roughly 1 restaurant meal spread across a day. Nobody was in danger. They knew the date it would end. They lost more than 1/4 of their body weight. But the bodies are not the finding. Watch what happened to the men. They stopped caring about anything that was not food. Men read cookbooks for pleasure. They collected recipes they could not cook. Meals became the only subject left. Some began planning careers as restaurant owners. They became slow and cold and irritable. Companies stopped being worth the effort. Several started shielding their plates with an arm. None of them noticed doing it. Some began going through bins. These were volunteers in a warm building, with an end date and a doctor watching. Keyes published all of it in 1950. Now remove the building, remove the end date, remove the certainty that anyone is coming. Every judgment you make about a famine, you make with a full stomach. The person in the famine was not you. By then, they were not themselves either. Understand that before the last one. Number 1 is the one you were waiting for. Let us do it properly. The evidence beats the stories. Bones do not lie about this. A butchered bone looks specific. Cut marks where a blade went round a joint. A break that only happens when bone is snapped fresh. Scrapes where meat came off the shaft. We read those marks on deer without blinking. So the test is simple. Do the human bones in this pile look like the animal bones? At a cave in Spain called Gran Delina, they do. Exactly. Same cuts. Same breaks. Thrown out in the same rubbish. A team led by Udald Carbonell published that in 2010. The bones are more than 800,000 years old. That is before our own species existed. Nobody there was quite us yet. It is the oldest case we have, and the marks say food. Then jump forward. A cave in England called Goes Cave. 14,700 years ago. That is about 600 generations back. Sylvia Bello and her colleagues found human tooth marks on human bone. They also found skulls cleaned, trimmed, and shaped into cups. Here is what ruins the simple version. That cave was full of animal bones as well. There was meat. They were not starving. Bello reads Goes Cave as a funeral, a way of keeping somebody, not a way of surviving them. So the record holds both. Sometimes hunger, sometimes love, and the cut marks look the same. One more, and this one is closest to us. In 2000, Richard Marler published a chemical test in Nature. A site in Colorado, abandoned in a drought. He found human muscle protein in preserved human waste, and on the cooking pot. Not cut marks this time. A meal, digested, left behind. That is number 1, not because it is the most shocking, because it is the end of the line, and the line is shorter than you think. Go back to the top of the list. Shellfish, ground roots, boiled bone, peeled bark, buried fish, a cache under a lake, a boiled coat, a child who waited, a person who stopped being themselves. And then the last one. Nowhere on that list is there a jump. Every step is a small, sensible move from the one before. That is the real finding. Not that people did terrible things. That the distance between an ordinary meal and the worst thing here is not a cliff. It is a slope. Walked in ordinary steps by skilled people doing their best. Almost every human who ever lived stood somewhere on it. You are standing on it now. You are simply very high up. The room behind you has food in it. It has always had food in it. 3 generations back, it did not. That is not ancient history. That is 4 names back in your own family. Somebody with your surname counted potatoes. Somebody with your surname went to bed early because it was cheaper than dinner. So next time you throw something out for being old, do not feel guilty. Guilt is useless, and I am not selling it. Just notice it. Notice that you had the option. Nearly nobody did.